When you hear the phrase soft as steel, what do you think of? While the word steel might conjure up images such as massive high-rise buildings, where does the soft part come in? And what exactly does this mean in our work and in our lives? Welcome to the Soft as Steel podcast with your host, Dennis Doran, featuring engaging conversations with a wide range of industry leaders around soft skills, how we practice love, inclusion, social justice, and compassionate leadership that's everlasting in the workplace. And now, here's Dennis Doran.
I'm really honored to introduce my guest today, who stands at the forefront of advancing opportunities for individuals in the finishing trades, particularly women. As the Director of Training and Education for District Council 21 of the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, headquartered in Philadelphia, she brings a wealth of experience to this vital role. Her journey began as a commercial painter, and she transitioned into roles as a commercial paint coordinator and a commercial paint instructor starting in 2017 until she was appointed to the director position she now holds. Her dedication and energy are helping to shape the future of the construction industry for women. Notably, she has championed the cause of women in construction. In 2020, she spearheaded the establishment of the Philadelphia Women's Committee, where she currently serves as chair. Additionally, she actively contributes to the IUPAT Women's Committee. In her own words, "I'm very intentional about hiring women, and nothing fires me up more than seeing women thrive in the Philadelphia Union building trades." Our guest's commitment to empowering women and fostering inclusivity within the construction field is truly commendable and vitally important. Welcome to the Soft as Steel podcast, Erin.
Thanks so much for having me, Dennis. I'm excited to be here.
Good. I'm glad. So it's so obvious. And I think I used the word women or women several times in introducing you. And I know you don't mind that because you have passion and purpose around something we both have the same level of understanding and appreciation. And that is that just when you think about numbers, gross numbers in terms of gender, with women tipping the scale in terms of being a little bit more in terms of the number, and then you look at the pathetic, 3, 4, 5%, whoever you ask, it's somewhere in that range, participation by women in the trades specifically. The numbers just don't make sense as far as numbers are concerned. Why and how are we going to be able to break through this statistical inconsistency?
Well, we just have to keep on moving that dial. And that's literally what I purpose myself with pounding the pavement for every day here in Philadelphia. And I'm only one person, but hopefully women like me across the country can help to move this dial. And we need the buy-in of our male allies as well to make that dial move.
Yeah. Let's share with the audience. I mean, you've done a number of things. You've been involved in a number of initiatives that have had positive impacts. Talk about the things that you've been doing under your direct leadership in the Philadelphia Council of the IUPAT.
Sure. So back in 2018, Just a Talk at a Table was a trades readiness program called WINC, Women in Non-Traditional Careers. And I have literally had the absolute pleasure of not only being a part of that trades readiness program, but actually being, the coordinator and the actual teacher to every graduate that has gone through that trades readiness program. WINC, Women in Non-Traditional Careers, is a 6-week cohort. We have 2 cohorts a year for women to learn everything from OSHA 10 first aid CPR to the heritage of the American worker to blueprint reading. And they are left with a skill set and a knowledge of all of the trades so that they can, successfully apply and thrive in any one of the Philadelphia Union building trades. And quite honestly, the women that graduate from WINC are they're rock stars, right? So even mechanical trades where white men have to apply 2 and 3 times in a row, WINC graduates are gaining access to the building trades on their very first try.
Wow. So you've already got success stories out there.
Yeah.
How are we leveraging the successes? How are they being amplified? How much more energy is it generating for both women who are already in positions of leadership? Maybe it's just middle-level leadership in a union or with a contractor. How are we trying to make it something bigger on a sustained basis?
I mean, so we have lots of social media, and if I think I'm understanding your question correctly, we have lots of social media and we have platforms like the Philly Wink Project platform where we get to hear tradeswomen's stories and like not only the graduates, but as you reference, like women that are already in this industry, because if you can say her, you can bear, right? So it's really, really important that all the women in our area are seeing other women in construction, right? Because they need to be able to envision themselves in that space. I have learned over the years that, you know, women, we like an invitation, right? So like we RSVP to birthday parties and baby showers and bachelorette parties, and like so we need to be invited, right? To this training or these cohorts or these opportunities, right? We need to know that we're needed there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of women may know that there are these things that exist, but they might not realize that these opportunities are for them. And so we have to be very proactive about actually inviting them to the table.
Mm-hmm.
I believe.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. What would you say is the kind of the general mindset of what I'll call the hindering generation, which is the generation that I'm in? What's the mindset that you're seeing? Again, are you seeing more positivity, more receptivity to setting aside this notion of, they're women, they can't do this, that whole kind of silly sentiment? Are you seeing some meaningful change in that?
We are. I mean, we definitely have buy-in, but for far too long, the construction industry has really been associated with, masculinity and strength and toughness. And as a result, I believe that women who are entering this field, they're often met with or encounter, skepticism and discrimination and really like the outright like disbelief in their abilities, and they're met with like these stereotypes that sort of undermine their competence levels and really devalue their contributions. And so like we really need to push past that. And as you referenced, about my quote, like,
Yeah,
that I
please,
I love to say.
please share it with us.
And that's like, I have contractors all the time that ask me for a worker, Air. That's what, they call me, my nickname, Air. You got a guy? Yeah, I got a guy. She's a girl. And we have to continue, this dialogue so that, it's more and more accepted. And like I like to pride myself on the fact that throughout my career, I'm very humbled to be in the position that I am today as the Director of Training and Education for District Council 21. But I'm also very prideful to tell you that I was a damn good painter in the field, right? As a union construction worker. And I like to pride myself on the fact that for those 8 hours of 7 to 3, I wasn't just, a girl. I was a worker. And when I put my hard hat on, you know what I mean? There's no
Mm-hmm.
difference in like, oh, what's she gonna do? What's she gonna say? And I had to earn that reputation out there, and shatter some glass ceilings for that to happen. But eventually it did. And that status, so to say, any woman is able to get there, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we don't have to be treated as a science project, right? Because we're on a construction site and it's male dominated. Like women need to be embraced because our contributions truly are invaluable.
Yeah. You mentioned the phrase, we have to prove ourselves. Kind of articulate what the difference is in terms of satisfying that we have to prove ourselves if the person that has to do that is a young male as opposed to being a young female. Do you have to prove more? Do you have to prove different things? Is it just harder? We know there's a disparity. We know there's a difference. I mean, we're talking about two genders. They may have relatively similar backgrounds at the point in time they get the connection to the opportunity to come into a pre-apprenticeship program. Let's use that as the entry point. And then they begin to engage. Do women have to do more or different things to get the bosses to say, you've proved yourself, you're on the team?
I believe that they do, Dennis. I believe that because we're a smaller population, when you talk about women that are actively with their tools on a national level, I think the number that we're looking at as reported by the DOL is at about 3.9%, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really sad.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I think what happens is I think that when you look at female construction workers with different situations, I think oftentimes we get put under like almost like I call it a microscope, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the same male apprentice that may come in and, maybe he has to take off for a series of court cases or whatever the case may be, he's viewed differently than maybe the woman that may have to take a day off because her child has a fever, right? And so automatically, she may need one day off, or she may need to leave early to pick up a kid from the nurse's office. And now she's viewed as being incompetent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, we also know that women don't get the same equitable spaces like for training, or oftentimes women, if an apprenticeship program is based on 2,000 hours a year, we know that oftentimes women have trouble meeting those quotas, right? Like they're not getting 2,000 hours of OJT experience on average. And some of that is due in part to the fact that sometimes there is jobs. And again, this is one of those situations where if some of the gentlemen, perhaps from your age group, maybe they're not being, preclusionary, but rather maybe they almost think that they're being a gentleman and say, oh, like I have a job, but it's a dirty one. It's, the doors, I need a glazer to fix these doors in this old stair tower, or I need this, stair tower painted or what have you. And, we don't want her to do that. Well, why not? She can,
Mm-hmm.
Like another thing that I always think about, right? Somehow Rosie the Riveter has been like the cheerleader, so to say, right, for women in construction. And the quote is we can do it. And
Mm-hmm.
excuse my French, Dennis, but we've been doing this shit.
Which part of that was French? I'm not picking up that part.
This shit part. you know?
Uh,
We've
yeah,
been doing this. It's not that we can do it. We've been doing this shit. And we
yeah.
just have to be allowed to continue to be able to do this and to really be treated like with equity,
Yeah.
I think when people think about some of that stuff, they think about like, a women's bathroom and a this and a that. Like, we'll get all that. Just
Mm-hmm.
treat us equal on the job. Allow us to do the same things. Allow us to have the same hours. Allow us to have the same training opportunities. And things like a woman's bathroom won't even be a talking point.
Right. Right. Well, as you're talking about, we do dirty things. Again, I'm soon to be a grandfather, so the first thought that popped into my head is all those dirty diapers. I mean, if you want to talk about a dirty job, I mean, that's the ultimate. It isn't on a construction site, but it is the ultimate dirty job, and men shy away from it. And the other thing, which we keep hearing is they can't lift as much weight as a man can lift. And my immediate response to that, because I think I don't think I'm your prototype of a baby boomer, of the old white guy. I don't think I behave or believe the things that the typical old white guy does. And one of them I don't believe is just that whole notion that's a game changer. That's the disqualifier. Because I would say that, I could probably randomly pick 2 or 3 guys out of a group of men only and put a 75-pound item in front of them to ask them to lift it, and some of them wouldn't be able to do it without hurting themselves.
You're absolutely right.
So there's nothing real about that. And as you know, I spend a lot of my time talking about the other skills that make someone a good worker and useful and productive to the end result. And that includes individuals that demonstrate they have a great attention to detail, which again is a quality of a person. It isn't in and of itself a skill that can be taught. Again, if they have that as part of their personality or behavioral style, then things are going to go great. Generally speaking, in something which, as because I'm sure as a painter, you probably I'm sure you use sprayers, you use brushes, you use rollers, and you use various size brushes, and did some very close detail finished paint work. And again, I was with a group in an estimating class just this beginning of this week. My numbers were impressive. I had 14 individuals in the class, and 5 were women. And as they engaged in the hands-on activity that's involved in teaching people the basics of estimating, I just observed what was going on in the room. And the places where good progress was being made, you could see good teamwork, you could see a real focus on the details was, and it's probably no surprise to you, were the tables that contained the women. We know that construction, all the trades, as a general statement, construction is hard work. It's dangerous work. If you recognize those two things and you're willing to accept that, if you can't, then male or female, it doesn't really matter what your gender is. If you don't want to do hard work, you're afraid of dirt on your boots and dirt on your pants, just this isn't the industry for you. But if those aren't concerns or disqualifiers for you, there are tremendous opportunities.
Absolutely.
I think one of the things, and I think what you're doing a good job of, just from the glimpses that I've enjoyed of you and hearing about how you go about filling your role in leadership, because you are in a critical leadership role. I mean, leaders' primary job is to draw the picture for the people they lead. And so you draw the picture of opportunity, of the path, of the events and the activities, et cetera, and most importantly, then you motivate people. I mean, just your communication style is motivating. So you play a huge role as the director of training and education in helping the industry, and the finishing trade specifically for your union, but helping the industry attract people to the industry. And we need all kinds of people. We need people with blue eyes, green eyes, white, black, yellow, green. We need men and we need women. So you play a huge role in that, and I respect you greatly for that. You're doing it well. You're building a reputation for yourself as being focused on doing the kinds of things that we need to do as an industry to ensure, in the most basic sense, that we will continue to be able to supply an adequate workforce.
Absolutely. You brought up a lot of good things, Dennis, and I would like to touch on. So you talked about the difference that maybe that a woman couldn't carry some things and then arguing if an older man could. And I don't know about all of that, but what I do know is I've never been matched with anything that he could do that I couldn't do. I just do it different, right? So a man has upper body strength and we're strong from the hips down. So I may do things a little different, lift that, item a little different or whatever the task is at hand, but I've never been matched with a task that I couldn't do, right? I can do whatever he can do, and don't tell anybody, but I'll do it better. And then the other thing that you just brought up about, and I love it, and I would love to share with you something that I came across because it just really resonated with me. Because you know how people always say, don't sweat the small stuff. And you talked about attention to detail. And it said, if you don't care about the tiny details, you'll produce bad work, because good work is the culmination of hundreds of tiny details. And that is exactly where women fit the bill for construction.
Yeah.
And it's everything from inventory to organization to communication skills to writing emails and dealing with GCs, because this isn't the construction world of even 25 years ago, right? So women really prove to be an asset. I speak with some of the other, directors of training and business agents from other building trades, and they are always so impressed. They say that most of the women that come into the trades for them oftentimes are fast-tracked into these, superintendent and roadman roles, because they just really, blow it out of the water. So, sorry, I just wanted to tell you that.
No. The listeners would prefer to hear you talking rather than me as a general rule. So no, but I'm glad you picked those two thoughts out. That I spend my time, my energy talking about the soft skills, talking about how people are when they're doing what they do is the phrase that I like to use. I think, again, any individual is capable of being able to do their job in a way that is not only received based on its basic quality of execution, but also in terms of how the people that they are around, people that they work with, the people they work for, the people that visit job sites on some random basis, how they are when they're doing what they do. I mean, you could be the best painter in the world, but if every time somebody comes on a job site, your boss gets a phone call saying, I don't know what's wrong with that painter, and somebody told me it was like one of your best people, but it ain't shown in his personality, Buster, because again, we separate in a way that is not to the benefit of thinking about the future. We separate and say, well, we'll teach them how to use a brush or how to use a roller, just to keep it very basic. We'll teach them those things. We'll get them on the payroll of an employer or signatory contractor. They'll continue the training. They'll do it the way we've been doing it for generations, which is on the job. And if they get it and they're good on the job, then they'll probably be satisfied to stay in their apprenticeship program, get into year 2, into year 3. But if they're not, and they have basic competence, but they got a lousy personality. They don't do things like if someone says hello to them, they don't even respond to them. Just basic human interaction skills, which up until a few years ago, even God bless them with my relationship with your union, we finally started paying attention. There's something to this soft skill stuff. And we need to be doing more of that while we do what we can do fairly well, if not very well. I mean, you've got your training center in particular is one of the best among all of them in a number of regards. You're part of the reason why that's the case. But they all do an adequate job, but we've got to be doing more. And this goes back to something that the executive director of the Canadian Building Trades, who actually reports to Sean McGarvey, who's a member of the union you're a member of in the North American Building Trades, he said that we need to be telling a different story about the construction industry. That was his basic thought. And that story needs to be different for the purpose of attracting new people in general. But we need to take advantage of the biggest opportunity that exists right now. And that, in terms of numbers, it's women. Your thoughts?
Absolutely, Dennis. The only way that we're going to be able to fulfill the labor shortage is with women in construction. Absolutely. And a different story. And I know exactly the quote that you're referencing from Sean. And, we need to tell a different story about construction for even this next generation, right? We know that all folks, men and women included, they don't really resonate with the same ideologies as your generation or even my generation, where, we kind of live to work, right? They want to work to live. And so we have so many things that need to change for us in the construction industry in order to attract that, labor force.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, and I know you understand this well, people look at what's going on in the total environment of the whole built environment, and they're seeing more and more penetration with different types of technologies. And my generation's reaction to that, and I'm making a generalization, but frankly, I think it's sadly, probably true. And that is that there are jobs there. We're going to lose jobs. People are not, and they say it as vaguely as I'm saying it right now because they don't really understand. When we talk about technologies, we're talking anything from, the things you can do with a smartphone as far as moving information along and documenting things and looking at drawings and all those kinds of things, all the way up into robotics and augmented and virtual reality. And they're all just very sophisticated, very powerful tools that have a potential to allow us to leverage our human capital. And again, the individuals that'll be particularly able to do that are the newest generations, and within those generations, the women. They're the ones who are going to be handling the controls on a device that's moving heavy materials from one location to another. Men can certainly do it, but again, just from a basic wiring standpoint, it irritates me and saddens me that, again, there are still men in our industry that, it's a great idea, but they're standing firm. They're not demonstrating one of the qualities that I think is so very important, and that is they're not demonstrating integrity. They may say one thing, but they're doing something else. And that something else is not providing avenues of opportunity, is not getting on board, is not being, and I forget the term that was used by one of your colleagues in describing a higher level leader in the trades. I think she referred to him as being an ally. And again, I think that there are great opportunities for allies, but I think what you're doing and what other parts of your organization are doing, they need to continue to coordinate and work together to try to develop some real momentum in building the numbers.
Yeah. And I think so you were, previously we were talking about like the why, right, of women in construction, and then the how. The how is really like that you have to set the tone from the top, right? And so it all starts with leadership. And so like I stressed to you earlier, like I'm completely humbled and blessed to be in the position that I am. And with a personality coupled with the one that I have, which is like you kind of can't tell me no, I act in very unorthodox ways, right? So you're not going to find too many directors of training across the country that are literally running around on yellow school buses, going on job site tours and teaching, NAB2's MC3 curriculum from, 8 to 4:30 p.m. on a daily basis. But that is what I opt to do. But not only with me, because it's not a one-person thing, right? Women need to find leadership opportunities in all the levels, right? Women need to be promoted to be, stewards on the job and foremen on the job, and to their e-boards and to be a delegate to their local union. And through through women in leadership, it's how we can create these more inclusive places for more women
Hmm.
to enter and thrive in the trade.
Yeah. What's your level of optimism about the next 5 years in our industry around this issue?
I honestly, I feel great about it. I think that if we if women can continue to carry these torches and we can continue to have female involvement at, like I spoke about, on all levels, and getting the word out to young girls, right? So not only at a high school level, but even at a middle school level, right? I speak about this all the time, but I am the graduate of a Philadelphia public high school, and we had shop classes, woodworking classes, and things of that nature going on in my local high school. And when you went to go visit your school counselor to figure out what should you be doing after your senior year of high school, you were met with like liberal arts or a bunch of different acronyms. And to be quite honest with you, Dennis, I still don't know what the hell a degree in liberal arts can get you. Okay. And as a young girl, you're kind of led in a path that, like, you're supposed to be a school teacher, a nurse, or possibly you're supposed to be a paralegal or a bank teller. And there's nothing wrong with any of those
Right.
professions, right? But none of those professions were for me, right? I
Right.
don't want to sit in a chair all day. I'm not that type. But I had no idea. Well, I wasn't allowed to walk down that hallway. We weren't allowed in that class. We were directed to go to home economics class and burn rice.
Yeah.
And I have 4 boys, and I do enjoy to cook, but I'm not opting to do it as a profession, right?
Yeah.
I look at them and I say, "Oh God, they want to eat again." Um, just kidding. But that's not what I wanted to do, right? And had I and what I did know about the building trades was that, yeah, I had girls that were my friends in the neighborhood, and their dad might have been a sheet metal worker or, a glazer. And I knew that these things existed, but I didn't think that there was any opportunity for me.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until I was a barmaid and my customers came in with these types of t-shirts on that said all the different unions, and I noticed that they had a big knot of money. And I also looked at the clock and noticed that it was only 4:30 and they were done work. And I said,
Uh-huh.
I don't know what they do, but I'm going to do it too. And thank God for that thought, because this is the best choice that I have ever made in my life. And to be quite honest, Dennis, at that time, I don't even know that I was really totally cognizant that I was even making a choice, right?
Uh-huh.
And so, so really letting young women know that these opportunities exist. And I believe as early as even elementary school, right? Because you're forming all these ideas in your head about who you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be. And also, like, debunking that misconception that, like, construction workers are dummies, because we don't want any dummies here. You
Right.
have to have quite, a robust skill set to be able to
Yes.
thrive here, right?
Yes.
We don't just pick stuff up and put it down.
Right.
So all of that is really important.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think you say it in very direct, boots on the ground, comprehensible way. Because again, our industry is not rocket science. I've said that a million times. I'm sure you agree with that notion. But what it does rely on, and again, it's my bias in a good sense, I think, and you demonstrate is through how your qualities come through in terms of your style of communicating, how you talk about things. And that is the most important thing for us to do if we want to be able to be successful is we have to be able to communicate with people. You can't understand people, understand what they do, understand who they are, understand what's important to them, unless you have the ability to communicate.
Sure.
And that, in a sense, I like to talk about communication, and this will be kind of our wrap up thought. I'd like you to react to it. I refer to communication as the ultimate core competence. It's something that every person, every day, should, and sometimes in a very conscious, direct way, but otherwise just in general, have on their minds that the most important thing that I have to do today, along with doing my job specifically from a production or an execution standpoint, is I've got to make sure that I interact with the people that I need to interact with. I need to be able to communicate. I need, and most importantly, for a lot of people, one of our biggest weaknesses in terms of abilities is listening. And again, those things which are hurdles or problems or barriers for a lot of people around communication, in part, there's a personality ingredient, because if you're an introvert, it's harder for you to communicate, even one-on-one in some cases. But certainly, if you're told, go take 4 individuals and go out and clean up the yard today because we don't have a job to go to work on, just something like that is a challenge for you. But you can learn. And we have to encourage people to that. And you're, again, as a leader, I'm sure you do it as you go about your day, you're communicating all the time. Leaders, their most important skill, if you will, at the basic level, is to be a great communicator. Because if you're not going to get things done. You're not going to get people moving. You're not going to get them to understand that there's opportunity here. We're all going in the same direction. In short, you're not going to motivate and inspire people if you don't know how to communicate. So it's a big deal. What are your last thoughts as we wrap up our short time together?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's a lot of everything that we're talking about only can happen through forging relationships, right? And all of that happens on communication. My kid, everybody will laugh, and everybody that knows me, obviously there's many modes of communication, right? Email and this, but I like to come talk to you in person, or we talk on the phone, whatever mode of communication it is. I'm on the phone with, folks in the industry, members, apprentices, from literally 5 o'clock in the morning until sometimes midnight.
Yeah.
Because literally, I can't get away from that. That is the most rewarding part of my job, is being able to help our membership and being able to help women in the city of Philadelphia and the surrounding counties to gain access to not only District Council 21 and the finishing trades, but truly, Dennis, to any one of the Philadelphia Union building trades.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I hate to say this. I have to stop talking to you.
Okay.
Yeah. Erin, this was exactly what I thought it was going to be. Fun, important, vital, useful. People will listen to this conversation and they'll enjoy listening to you because you are genuine, you're authentic, you're passionate, you obviously love what you do. And as my mentor would say in his first book that he wrote 22 years ago, he would say to you, do what you love in the service of people who love what you do. And that's what you do.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us today for this episode of the Soft as Steel podcast with your host, Dennis Doran. Dennis is the author of Soft as Steel and a leading speaker and trainer for organizations across many industries and verticals. To learn more about the work Dennis is doing to activate soft skills in the workplace, contact him at DennisDuranSpeaking.com. Be sure to check out his book, Soft as Steel, on Amazon or wherever books are sold. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or wherever you'd like to get your podcasts. And please remember to share this episode with your friends, colleagues, and anyone you feel would benefit from the conversation. We'll see you next time on the Soft as Steel podcast with Dennis Doran.
Produced by Audavita Studios. Connect your voice to the world.